You're excused. Do we have any comments or questions? Or yes. I think, I don't know who was first, but we'll take you both.
So I would recommend, I like to have some contact with users because then you really see which troubles they hit and which buttons they don't find and these things can make your software even better. And that's what I think I like about direct contact between developers and users.
That is very good of you. That makes you a good developer, actually. I know quite a few people who do well with that attitude. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, Georg, thank you for the very inspiring insight and your opinion. My question is that, do you know that in any, because of your very good connection to the FSB, I asked this, do you know if there is in any countries going on any kind of action that, like we in Finland, for example, through the FSA chamber in Finland, and of course we have raised this issue of the privacy and especially on the public sector. We have pointed out that, for example, Microsoft 365 system is not safe in the way how the legal or legislation is actually saying that how the public officers should be kind of taking care of our data inside our country. Now we have raised this issue and say that okay, that the contracts what you are signing, they are not guaranteeing that you are able to dig down and check out that where the data is. So who is taking the responsibility? And I was so happy when of course the case is not so happy, but what I mean is that finally we got the proof out of that what we have been saying. And now we are kind of planning there that okay, since we have been, you know, screaming and shouting this fact for a couple of years, pointing it out that despite the fact that whatever the Microsoft is saying, who's going to believe? And now we have the proof on that okay, this is the case. Now question is that, what do you think, how hard we should be there? I mean, I'm so angry about this that I'm ready to go to the court with those, guys and say that even though that we showed you, we demonstrated you that this is possible, we say that the or contracts what you are signing is giving the freedom for the US government to do whatever they want. And even despite the facts, you signed the contracts and you voluntarily gave the data for them. So you are the responsibles. And now that's against the law there. So this is a good question, and I don't know. I'm really interested that is there such angry guys in another EU countries, because I believe that the situation is pretty similar in other countries also.
Yes, and I mean, you're of course entirely right. It was known, and you could have known, and you should have known, because there is even official statements way before PRISM from both Microsoft and Google saying that it doesn't matter where the data is even, which data center hosts it is completely irrelevant. The US government has access, period. So, even when you have a contract that says, oh yes, it'll be hosted in Europe, it's completely irrelevant. And we've known that for a while. That is true. So I think the Swedish, right? Was it the Swedish data protection agency that actually made it illegal for public sector to use Google? The whole Google apps are no longer allowed for public sector. I think that actually is the right course. I mean, if not the government, who is in a position to actually run their own systems in a way to protect the sovereignty of the nation? I mean, virtually, I actually believe that every single country should run their own infrastructure, and they should do it on open source. That's the only sustainable way.
Yeah, that's right.
The question is, how do we bring that about? Now, suing them may be effective on a certain level. However, be aware that you're not winning friends this way, right? So you may create a counter force to your trying to act upon the fact that they did the wrong thing in the past, or you may be able to actually talk to them first privately perhaps and say, look, you know, you've done this in the past, and we have the answer for you to actually fix this. So how about we now fix this? Because my experience is that even politicians usually want to do the right thing. It's just that for them, being so many abstraction levels above what is going on in technology, it's not quite so easy to say what that is, because they don't have the competency typically, and they also have a whole lot more subjects. All of this then becomes part to the political bargaining process, right? You give me something, I give you something. You wanted Microsoft in here, so you know you then vote for my other bill. This kind of negotiation is going on in the political system always. So perhaps it is worth exploring first whether you can work with them. And if you find out that you can't, then take stronger measures. But I would not alienate a potential ally before I know whether or not they are an ally or could be made into one. So strategically speaking, I would propose that we actually engage with governments everywhere we are and see who exactly is an ally in this and who would be willing to change something about it, and then work with them, because they will typically also have the best idea of how to bring that change about. Because the point is not in suing people, the point is not in, you know, creating uproar or publicity. None of that really is important to me. What I want is that the substance changes. And so for me the question is, what is the most efficient way of making that happen? A lawsuit may be efficient in that, if there's no other way, but typically I would resort to that only as the last option.
Just a little question. Do you happen to know if FSFE and Karsten's team, if they have approached Nelly Kroes or anybody on the EU level with this?
Well,
okay.
I know there is conversations always ongoing, but I am not sure to which level right now Karsten or Matthias want any of this disclosed. So, I mean, they're obviously in touch with the EU, but I would propose actually to have an internal round in FSFE to see where the strategic point right now lies. But yes, I mean, they're obviously fully aware of what's going on, and I've spoken with both of them about the whole PRISM thing. So I know that they are not unaware of it, let's put it this way.
If possible, I'd like to add a bit on that. Thank you so much. I'd like to add to that. Excellent answer, by the way. I think you should not overestimate the role a politician plays actually in the decision-making process of which software is actually used in a local or national government. Actually, it's, in my experience from 10 years in the Dutch government, it's almost always a technical first decision. And for the past 25 years, this decision has been very simple. Stick to what we know, which is the Microsoft way of things. Actually, in the Netherlands, there are several groups of open source business owners, including mine. For example, we have just established Drupal Overheid. Drupal, the content management system, is one of the systems in use by the Dutch government, by several Dutch governments. And actually, instead of fighting each other, a group of suppliers decided to team up and actually build some universal modules and themes for the Dutch government to use. This effectively enabled the Dutch government to use Drupal with these modules and themes as a standard installation, level playing field, so they still could do their European tenders on the platform, but from this shared base. And personally, I believe this is the way to go.
I don't think politicians are that much involved into technology, nor should they be, because actually in the Netherlands we had a law passed. It was the motie Vendrik, named by Kees Vendrik, the politician from Green Left. And actually this had a completely counterproductive effect, because most IT departments saw it. They did not perceive their current problem as vendor lock-in. They perceived the new problem as Vendrik lock-in. They had to use open source and they simply didn't want to. They wanted to stick to what they know. So I think the way forward is simply cooperating, create a couple of good standardized business cases of open source software in which all businesses can participate. This is of course preaching to the choir, I think, but I think this is the way to go. Suing is almost always counterproductive. Thank you for listening. You've got a new microphone. I saw a question over there actually. Should I go that way?
Yes, please.
I think he was first actually. I saw him waving before. Here he goes.
So your proposals for government are fine, and my question is, what about for the enterprise? One of the big issues for the enterprise is data center costs. They are a significant portion of their IT budget. The problem is there are no European public cloud vendors that would then have to abide by EU law. At present, the major cloud vendors are all US based, and as such, any data stored on there can, and relatively easily, will be handed over to the US government should they wish. How do you see, well, what's your suggestion for getting a EU-based cloud provider, similar to Amazon or Rackspace, etc., that could then enable enterprises of all sizes, whether it be SMBs, SMEs, etc., to be able to take control of their own software and data, but not necessarily have to worry about the underlying cost to run that software on top?
That is a very good question and also a tricky one. I believe there may actually be a case now for political intervention even. I mean, we built for strategic reasons Airbus, for instance, as an alternative to Boeing. We may have to do something similar in the data center space if no one else steps up. I think there should be an obvious demand now. So I do hope that some VCs at least are paying some attention, because there's obviously demand for European-run data centers. So I would hope that, you know, someone would actually step up to do that. Unfortunately, you know, usually when you say someone, that sometimes means no one unless you're willing to do it yourself, but I'm kind of busy right now. So ultimately, though, I think there is a business case here. And I would hope that whoever is out there with a certain entrepreneurial tendency takes this ball and runs with it, because I would prefer that greatly to requiring governmental intervention. But if nothing else helps, then I think strategically speaking, that is what governments should be doing, because it's not in the interest of a government to see its own industry purely at the mercy of the international interests of some other country. There is just no strategic sense in letting that kind of dependency exist. You do want a certain level of control. Some countries have understood this, by the way. Unfortunately, none of them are European. But Brazil, to highlight one, has understood this pretty well. Starting from financial independency, I mean, paying back its debt to the World Bank, essentially saying we're debt-free now, you can tell us nothing. There is a very, very clear understanding that independence is a value. But China as well. I mean, China obviously wanted control over the entire chain, including the chips, to be able to produce what they need themselves, so they know exactly what's going on in there. And I think we have a bit to learn from them. India, with its space program, is a purely strategic endeavor on some level, where they actually say we need the space program to not be dependent upon other nations, so we can actually launch satellites into space without requiring someone else's carrier system. So countries do, and for very good reason, make strategic calls on this is such a crucial piece of infrastructure, so important to us. We need to do something about it. If the market, the invisible hand, whatever, doesn't magically bring it, then our job is to make sure that the strategic interests of our people, of our country, are protected. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that this may actually be just such a case, because it's surely important enough. Yes, I am very done. Last question, then we're closing, okay?
Okay. Good morning, and thank you for your enlightening keynote. I would like to ask a question that kind of borderlines on paranoia and conspiracy theory, but we do have a conspiracy before our eyes. My question is that even if we impose open source and we know what is going on everywhere, how can we be sure that we actually know what is going on, and how can we know that they don't actually have a secret project like PRISM anytime? That's my question. I mean, if we have, let's say, an election system that is open source and everybody knows how it works, how can we know that this is the actual system that counts the votes and not some other system?
That is true. Actually, e-voting is one of the areas where I still remain to be convinced that there is a way to do it that holds up to all the democratic principles. I actually still believe paper is still the best way of voting. I mean, I know technology, so it's like, I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced, because there's too many ways to manipulate it. And you're exactly right, you don't know what is running on there. So yes, I think actually that perhaps not everything should be purely based on technology. I think voting is one of those examples. But other than that, yes, I mean, those programs will continue to exist. It's just that it's going to be much, much harder and at a much higher cost trying to get access to information. I mean, security is about the cost versus the benefit, right? Because no system is ever perfectly secure. I mean, every system will be breached at some point if you have a sufficiently dedicated, motivated attacker. No matter what we try or what we do, in the end, it's about raising the cost for breaking the system. And open source allows us to do that very efficiently. Plus, it is harder to hide backdoors. I mean, perhaps not impossible, given the complexity of the software. So I would not stand up and say it is guaranteed there will be no backdoors ever in open source, because we all know how complex this shit is by now. So there's been even one guy from the BSD community who stood up and said, my NDA is up, the NSA paid me to put a backdoor in BSD. So, I mean, no one knows whether that's actually true, no one knows whether that backdoor still continues to exist, and so on and so forth, but there have been cases like this. So, yes, we don't fully know, but we have the chance to check. We have the ability to look at things, and we have a much higher probability, and it's in the end, it's all about statistics, a much higher probability that actually we will find whatever is wrong with that code. And that backdoor, even if it gets put in there, will be, you know, patched out by the next patch, maybe not even for security reasons, for some other functional reasons. It's all possible. In the end, open source is not a perfect answer. But technically, it's the best. And software freedom, politically and socially, clearly is the far superior answer. So, is it perfect? No, but then what is? I mean, really. It's clearly the better answer, so we owe it to all of us and society to take it and make sure it gets everywhere. So that's it. My time's up. Thank you very much.